Eli Gold, welcome back to T-Town. I hope you're doing well, sir.
I am well. Good to be back with you.
Absolutely. Are you anticipating this kickoff like we are? It's been a long off season in T-Town.
It has been. We're all of us are college football fans. So yes, I've still got a good bit of work to do. Obviously, neither team has released any true formal depth chart. So there is work to do. But I've been going to practice and going to the scrimmages and keeping an eye on development. So yeah, we're getting close.
Absolutely. I just got to pass on a hello. We've been featuring the voice of the Florida State Seminoles, Gene Deckerhoff, a couple of minutes ago. He said, make sure I tell Eli Gold hello. He said he's
thank you. Gene and I are dear friends, many, many, many years in standing. So I'm looking forward to seeing him in Atlanta in a couple of weeks. Gene and I crossed paths in North Carolina about a year or so ago, and we must have stood there and talked for an hour. So, yeah, he's a good friend.
No doubt. And just those broadcasters like yourself that helped us connect the game and the moments of Alabama, just like with him for Florida State. Let me ask you, what's your expectations for Alabama going into the season?
Well, it's a very, very good team, certainly. It is a young team, as Coach Saban has said. So there are going to be some, growing pains, I dare say, in some regards. But as we all learned last year, young or inexperience does not necessarily, mean lack of success. Jalen Hurts inexperienced himself all the way to the national championship game and darn near won it. So it will be a younger team, but there's still so much talent. It all comes back to the coach and his staff and their recruiting ability and the fact that they just love to recruit. Coach Saban just I have talked to coaches who recruit because they have to. It's drudgery. They don't necessarily like it, but they recruit because they have to. Then you get a Nick Saban and his staff when they recruit because they love to. And it really does come out in the success ratio. So it's going to be a very, very good football team, but in some areas, certainly to the start of the year, somewhat inexperienced.
But you talk about the inexperience because of the way that you talked about with Nick Saban being able to recruit. They almost go up against one of the better teams in college football week in, day out in practice. Then when game time gets here, it's like it's a break, but they have experience, even though we're not able to see that going.
Oh, yeah, there's no question. You bring up a very valid point. And, we've also seen that over the last few years. When now that Alabama faces a somewhat up-tempo team in practice, they face a quarterback who has the ability to run in addition to throw and can run and get out of trouble. There were years there where Bama didn't have that. Their quarterbacks were totally different. Successful, certainly, but totally different. Well, now you're seeing these kind of guys every day in practice when you line up against the Bama QBs. So, yes, there is a definite different approach, if you will. It's something that they do see every day. It's a great point.
Are you seeing this personality and identity of this team being formed behind the scenes?
I don't know, and I don't see enough of the true behind the scenes. I go to practice, I go to scrimmages. I don't hang out in the locker room. So a lot of that stuff. But the other day, obviously, Jalen and the offensive line, went to dinner over at Baumhauer's. So they do like each other. They're getting along very well. But the true personality and the type of team that develops, over the weeks. But yeah, they do genuinely like each other. These players do. They are good kids. They have bought into the coaches. Even Brian Dable, a new coach. The kids really like him. The coaches are meshing. That's one thing nobody ever talks about. And I always ask the coach about that, and I know I will on our first pregame show of the year, or potentially on the Nick Saban show next Thursday night when he joins us for the first time a week from this Thursday. How do the coaches mesh? Guys with new responsibilities, Brian Dable, the return of Joe Panunzio, things like that. That's very important. And watching the guys work, they all seem to be getting along just famously. So that's good.
Can you walk us through your prep week? I know we've talked about this before, but I always think it's unique, and how much of that is different when you look at a game. It's the first game. It's like preseason prep. How much does that change as you prepare for Alabama and Florida State?
Well, it is different than all the other weeks, simply because you are really preparing for two teams on the opening week. You are getting out there and making sure that number 93 is Phil Mathis, and you don't use the number from somebody who wore 93 a year ago. You're also at practice before the season looking at different running backs and trying to make sure you can recognize them without actually seeing their numbers. Which guy has a little hair sticking out from underneath the bottom of his helmet at his neck? Which guy might have this? Which guy stands like that? Do you know? Because there are instances where somebody could be in just the right angle or blocked a little bit, and you can't see a jersey number or you can't see the number on his helmet. You want to know what these guys look like. And that's very intense work at this time of the year, particularly preparing for the first game. Once you get into the season, Alabama, the guys. You go to practice. You update the statistics and some biographical info based on the previous week, but the guys. You're then working on preparing for the 105 guys who come in with Fresno State or the 105 guys who come in with Colorado State. For this first game, you're preparing for two full teams, and you're also doing other stuff that has nothing to do with the game, but has to do with the broadcast. One-time only things, getting commercial formats ready, getting the commercial copy recorded. Make sure you have everything with you in the booth that you're going to need during the course of the game for live commercial reads and things of that nature. So, because obviously our broadcasts, as is the case for many major schools, are very heavily sold and heavily, commercial load. So there's a lot of stuff you have to do before the first game that you're never going to have to do for the rest of the season, but you got to get all that stuff together. So, there's a lot of work that goes into it. You don't just show up, sit down, and talk for 8 hours. It is labor intensive, but at the same time, I'm not looking for any sympathy. It's a heck of a way to make a living.
No doubt. Listen, it's like you have to pinch yourself sometimes to go, man,
exactly.
Look at this dynasty. I read a number yesterday, and I know you already know this. You could probably add some to it. I watched the AP Bowl released Alabama at number 1. Since 2008, 59 times Alabama's been at that number 1 spot. It's remarkable at this dynasty that Alabama's currently in.
It's remarkable. What is it now, 9 years, at least at some time in 9 years in a row, the team has been at the number 1 spot, whether they started there or got there during the season. What is it now, 6 years in a row that they have started the year either number 1, number 2, or number 3. I mean, it is remarkable. We all knew when he came in that Nick Saban was good. That was, you knew that. I don't know how quickly anybody expected the program to get to the level that it had, and of course, having the success he had virtually out of the box in year 2 for him, and it just continues to grow. But the amazing thing is, nothing changes. I mean, what's today, the 22nd of August? What's going on today on the 22nd of August is the same thing that happened 7 years ago on the 22nd of August, and it's the same thing that's going to happen in 4 years from now on the 22nd of August. I mean, the man has his way of doing things, and he doesn't change because it's successful, and it's remarkable to watch. It's I'm blessed to be able to see it and be there for it because, of course, as any broadcaster will tell you, you're a far better broadcaster when the team you're working for wins and has success. So, I've been blessed to be here through what is arguably the greatest era of Crimson Tide sports.
Eli, when did you know and I know that Nick Saban walked in with a national title and SEC titles, but just getting a chance to see him up close work his magic, when did you know that he was building something this special?
Well, that he was building this probably to the end, near the end of that first year, where the team was still, on the teetering on a 500 mark or below. But I saw how he handled everybody and prepared them. But when I really knew the guy was special, it's really amazing. But it was before he even played his first game at Alabama or coached his first game at Alabama. We were at a function where the coach spoke to the entire freshman class of the university, not just the athletes, the entire freshman class. They had a function at Bryant-Denny Stadium. It was kind of a welcome to Tuscaloosa kind of thing. They had local businesses there. Hey, if you're looking for good Chinese food, come to our restaurant. If you want Mexican, come to us. If you're going to get cable, get it from us. It was a welcome to Tuscaloosa deal. And Coach Saban showed up, whereas in previous years, the football coach never made it. He would always tape a video, and it would play on the scoreboard. He showed up, and 4 minutes of talking, he had everybody leaning in, eating out of the palm of his hand. I don't care if you were mothers and fathers, you were the students, you were myself. I mean, when he was done, I was ready to go out and hit somebody. I'm driving back to Birmingham that day. I was driving home, and I called my wife on the phone, and I said, now I know why the guy is as good as he is. He had everybody totally captivated. And now we have seen that he has the ability to get more out of these kids than maybe they themselves think they have to give. And that's when I knew the guy was special. But it was near the end of that first year or right at the start of the second year when I realized, hey, this is big time right here.
Is there a favorite moment that you look back in this dynasty that just sticks out above the rest?
Oh, goodness.
Maybe a call?
Well, there were a number of, certainly all the national championship wins. I've been blessed to have, done 5 victories of national title games, one in the Gene Stallings era. But, I loved the game at the Rose Bowl for no other reason than it brought Alabama's history full circle. We all remember the significance of going to the Rose Bowl way back when Southern football was not respected like it is today. And these guys in the South took the train out west and showed the rest of the world what Southern football was about. So going back to the Rose Bowl Stadium, and it was not the first time I'd been there with Bama. They had played, there in the past against UCLA, but it was the impact of that game. And, of course, the game against Tennessee when Terrence Cody blocked those field goals. Without that, there wouldn't have been another SEC title game and a national championship. There are so many. There really are. To try and single out one or two or three would be darn near impossible.
Eli Gold right now with us as we finish up our conversation. I think you've got a big guest on Thursday. I like this new AD. I know your chance to highlight him to the rest of the Crimson Tide Nation on Thursday evening. Yeah,
we got a great show Thursday night. Greg Byrne is going to be with us, our director of athletics, and he'll take phone calls from the listeners and just kind of give us a State of the Union address, if you will, here in his heading into his first football season as Bama's AD. We've also got Christy Curry, the head women's basketball coach, and they should have an outstanding team this year. She has really got a good bit of talent there, some great returning players. She'll be with us, and Antoine Petway, assistant coach for the men's side. Avery Johnson has a previous engagement. He won't be able to join us, but Antoine's going to be there. So it's going to be a fun show from 6:30 until 8 over at Baumhauer's Victory Grill, the new location right next to the Hampton Inn. But, yeah, Greg Byrne is a wonderful guy. I've had a chance to meet with him and talk to him and have dealings with him, obviously, since he first got here. And he's really very, very special. So it should be a lot of fun with him on Thursday night.